Leading neonatologist who has led an independent expert panel analysed the evidence against Lucy Letby and concluded that she may be innocent and the victim of a horrendous miscarriage of justice.
Just had an astonishing 2 hours, Camilla. We're here at 1 St George's Street in central London, where Dr Shoo Lee, the MP David Davis, and a number of other medical experts have laid out over 120 minutes. Camilla, I think both of us agree that we have just sat through two of the most remarkable hours in either of our careers. A panel of experts who are now saying that none of the convictions against Lucy Letby are safe. We'll be joined by David Davis, who led the press conference today, the MP who has led the campaign for justice for Lucy Letby, and Sarah Knapton, our science editor, who has also been one of the journalists to first start questioning the evidence against who was once described and is still described as one of Britain's most horrific serial killers. Camilla, there's still the hubbub of noise here, still interviews taking place. It's been a really remarkable day that we have experienced, and a really important day probably in British justice. But before we kick off with the interviews, with some of our analysis, let's just hear Dr Shoo Lee's. This was at the end of his evidence when he went through the summation of why he believes that none of the convictions against Lucy Letby are safe.
We found that the medical histories were incomplete. There was a failure to consider the obstetric history. There was disregard for surveillance warnings about bacterial colonization. There was misdiagnosis of diseases in these babies. They were caring for babies that were probably beyond their expected ability or designated level of care. There were unsafe delays in diagnosis and treatment of acutely ill patients. There were poor skills at resuscitation and intubation. There was poor supervision of junior doctors in procedures like intubation. There were poor skills in basic medical procedures like insertion of chest tubes. There was lack of understanding about basic things like respiratory physiology and how to mechanically ventilate a baby. There was poor management of common neonatal conditions like hypoglycemia. There was lack of knowledge about commonly used equipment in the NICU like Neopath and capnograph. There was failure to protect infants who were at risk, for example hemophilia, from trauma during intubation. There was a lack of teamwork and trust between the health professions. There were also statements given by many witnesses which point to serious resource and infrastructure deficiencies. And these specific concerns that were expressed by individuals include inadequate numbers of appropriately trained personnel in the unit, lack of training for assigned nursing roles, inadequate staffing and workload overload, poor plumbing and drainage resulting in the need for intensive cleaning in the unit. And this is a potential factor in Stenotrophomonas meltophilia infection because this particular bacteria thrives in water, and particularly in dirty water and bad water. There was poor environmental temperature control in the facility. There was difficulty in finding a doctor when the need arose. There was congestion at the medication cabinet and preparation trolley. There was lack of appropriate facilities for sterile preparation of drugs. Some high-risk infants should have been born and cared for at higher level institutions, but were born and cared for in this hospital. And there were delays in transfer of sick infants to higher level facilities when the need arose.
Look, Kamal, we have got a very, very lengthy summary of the report that's been put together by the independent expert panel. It's hugely detailed, it's extremely medical, it's quite complicated from a scientific perspective. Just to break it down and to remind ourselves, Lucy Letby was convicted of killing and attempting to kill altogether 17 babies using different methods. The methods that she was accused of using included injecting air into their intubation tubes, therefore causing them to suffer from air embolism, purposefully trying to block tubes, to try and dislodge tubes, and basically interfering with feeding and indeed intubation tubes. She was also accused of infecting feeding bags with insulin that would then cause babies to suffer and die. She was accused of causing trauma to a baby's abdomen and causing them to suffer liver damage. And she was also accused in one case of overfeeding babies. So It was a whole catalogue of accusations against her. Manchester Crown Court held a very lengthy trial, listening to evidence that was put to the jury. It cited statistical evidence suggesting that she had been present in the cases of all of the deaths. It cited medical evidence from an expert for the prosecution called Dr Dowie Evans, basically suggesting that there was no other way that these babies could have died than in Lucy Letby's care, and that she had not just been negligent in her behaviour, but beyond reasonable doubt had either killed them or attempted to kill them. What we've had with this, and I don't know about you, I've covered quite a lot of press conferences like this. I sort of thought I'd come this morning and maybe hear a rather circumspect, well, we've had a look at the evidence. In some cases we've concluded this, but in others we've concluded that. I've never known such a sort of systematic demolition of a prosecution case in my entire life. Have you?
I've never seen it done in this way, and done, as you say, so definitely. Dr Shoo Lee, as you say, one of the leading neonatalist experts in the world, he went through and said, for example, and we've got our notes here right in front of us, we were scribbling away through these 2 hours of this press conference. He just said, on the idea of air embolism, injecting air into veins or arteries, let us do away with that theory. They went through, and we've got to remember the families here. These are dead children. And he went through each of the baby cases and put forward exact reasons why those children could have died, because they were either very, very seriously ill or the medical care was not good enough. And in each and every case, he said the allegations made against Lucy Letby all had other explanations.
And it's worth remembering that Dr Shoo Lee became involved in this because the prosecution expert witness, Dr Evans, relied on a paper that he had written about air embolism. And Dr Evans has suggested that in some of the cases, the babies, their skin appeared discoloured or mottled, and that this automatically meant that they must have suffered from an air embolism. And Dr Lee came forward to say, no, you've misinterpreted my paper. That's not what we've said at all. So the kind of first shock moment was this idea that air embolism is linked to skin discoloration, which was effectively the key plank of the prosecution's case.
And what was remarkable, Camilla, with that, I think this 2 hours, I found out so much about how justice doesn't work. The fact that the prosecution solicitors never got in touch with Dr Shoo Lee, even though they were using his evidence from 1989